All right, welcome back to another episode of our relationship series. Tonight is going to be a good one because I think that it is a lot of necessary questions that a lot of couples do not necessarily take the time to invest and ask before investing time and energy into another person. So, first and foremost, please, before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It just helps further grow our channel and it will help those seeking the same information get exposure to other types of information. So, how was your week, Sam?
It was actually a very good week.
Good,
Yeah, how about
good.
yourself?
I had a great week so far. I mean, it's only Wednesday,
Yeah.
but so far, so good. So far, so good.
Man
So,
managing with the school strikes.
that too. That too, but that's here nor there.
Yeah.
It's something that just has to happen, right?
Yeah.
So a very interesting topic tonight. So I don't know, Sam, if you look on your right-hand side where it says comments, banners, brand, private chat. Do you see all that?
No, I just see private chat and live comments.
Okay, so yeah, so you want to go to live
Yep.
comments. Okay, so that's where people can post things also.
Got it.
Okay. But to kick it off, so tonight we are talking about the top 10 things, and I've actually added about two more to ask someone before investing that time and energy into a long-term relationship. So I mean, we can get right into it. And I would love to hear your views because I think some of them are super important. So the very first one, I'm going to show it. You can probably see it on the screen now. The first one is religious views. How important do you think this would be in a relationship if you had the same or differing views on religion?
Did you put this in live comment?
It should just be up on the screen where my
Yeah,
name
no.
is.
Yeah,
Where
no,
my
it's not. Oh, religious views. There we go. Yep.
There you go. We're working on this new live streaming here. So, what do you think about religious views?
Well, I think when it comes to, any view,
Hmm.
which is kind of a perception, which is a belief, a value, whatever you want to call it. I think it's important. Religion is such a huge one because I actually coached someone who was a Muslim
Hmm.
and married a woman who was of a different faith. And the first marriage didn't work out. Tried again in the second marriage, the same sort of format. Both women had different religious beliefs. And when I coached them,
Hmm.
I couldn't help but really make a good connection between how religion played such a key role in the failure of the relationship.
Hmm.
I mean, if you are an extreme, there's people who are deemed religious. I was brought up and so are you, in a Catholic faith. I'm not practicing. I'm not, by the Ten Commandments, by the rules, and I have to find someone who shares those same views and perspectives. I have a very open mind to that. However, there are some people who have very strong faith, which is amazing.
Hmm.
But here's where it can get conflicting. How many people, especially in this situation where they hooked up with somebody who had different religious views, if any at all, and they were practicing the religion to its entirety? And, I always say, I did a Twitter post today, and a quote I heard a long time ago, where looks are only skin deep, but attitude is all the way through. And what I mean by that essentially is, what do you value? What do you believe about life? What are the things that make you feel love, joy, connection, and so you can grow as a human being? And religion is such a huge one. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think that if the doctrine of the type of religion that you are a part of, if it is so encompassing of your day-to-day life, it could eventually be an issue, especially if you're inviting someone into your life who is not practicing or of a different faith. If they're similar faiths, that might be okay, like Christian, United, Baptist, that type of thing. However, if you're inviting someone into your life that is a complete opposite, you may be asked to change your religion. You may be asked to be a part of a different religion that you have no idea what it entails, because some of the practicing religions have a lot of day-to-day tasks, and you have to be willing to do that. I mean, up front, it might seem all cute and nice and, wanting to do this, but when it is all encompassing of your day-to-day life and your actions and who you can be around and speak and all those things, it could potentially take a toll on you as an individual and the relationship. So you just have to get clear on what it is about that religion that is going to be part of your day-to-day life. Is it going to be part of your day-to-day life? What it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like, what the practice actually is. Because it could be a deal breaker for sure. For sure. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think one of the things could be, and I actually coached a person on this, was alcohol consumption. In their religion, there was no alcohol consumption allowed.
Mhm.
Where they're
Mhm.
with somebody who obviously enjoyed and consumed alcohol, and when they met, she was, or he, or she was willing to give that up.
Mhm.
However, it became a problem later on because they wanted to start using alcohol again.
Mm.
And it came down to the fact that, well, they promised you they were going to change, and now they're doing it. Well, it's almost, you're really getting down a rocky road. I always say, we always talk about this, you almost wish you had like a wish list,
Mhm.
of, when you met somebody and you kind of went through that questionnaire. And at the end of the questionnaire, it kind of told you whether or not it was a good or bad decision to keep
Mhm.
moving on, or
Yeah.
at least that way you could evaluate what sort of relationship you were going to get with this person.
Right.
So I think when it comes to religious views, if you are a religious person, you got to be very stringent about the person you connect with,
Mhm.
because they could stray you away from that. You might be giving up things because of attraction,
Yeah.
because your hearts and mind is involved now. And later on, it might lead to regret. And these
Yeah.
are things, there's certain things in life that you negotiate. There's certain things in life that you're willing to tolerate, but there's certain things in life you shouldn't be willing to change, because at some point you will feel like you're giving a part of yourself away.
Yeah.
And
I
that's when
agree.
the regret happens. That's when the doubt happens. That's when the resentment happens. So if you're a religious person, make sure you have the intelligent talks. Make sure you try to really just say, where can I find these sorts of people that I need to connect with that share the similar views,
Yeah.
or it could even be more religious than I, and could teach me more things about my religion that can make me grow as a person. But to find someone that is less than is okay,
Mhm.
as long as they want to go on that path with you. But if you know right now and you're watching this, you're with someone who doesn't share those same perspectives, you need to have that hard talk.
Mhm. I agree. So let's move on to the second one. The second one is children. And I think that's something, especially if you are middle-aged or nearing the path in your life where you're actually contemplating having children. This is a talk that you need to have and get clear on how many,
Or if
um,
any.
if any at all,
Yeah.
what it looks like to raise these children. Disciplinary actions. I mean, there's very authoritative parents, and then there's very aloof parents. And that type of parenting style can also be very conflicting. So I think getting clear on that as well, because not everybody wants to have children and not everybody parents the same. And you have to kind of dig a little deep into the styles and the wants and the needs. So, what do you think?
Here's what I think, as being a father of three.
Hmm.
Having children is a privilege, it's
Hmm.
not a right.
Hmm.
And so, number one, and the reason why I'm saying that is this: I can't tell you how many times people have. I heard a story once, and Tony Robbins mentioned this on one of his podcasts. He ran into a friend at an airport, and him and this girl were getting married, and she was much younger than him. And he was having a talk with him, and he knew he was married previously. And he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna get married." And they said, "Oh, that's great. Well, she's just so much younger than you. Like, are you guys gonna have kids?" Nope. I told her, no kids.
Hmm.
It's like, okay. And his wife happened to be in the line with this gentleman's wife, and they talked afterwards, like, "Hey, what was she saying? Was he saying?" She's like, yeah, we don't have kids, but give me a couple years and I'll change his mind. And sure enough, they ended up in divorce. So
Mm,
children are not something that you toy with or use as
right.
pawns, or you
Right.
think it's, you're going to hook somebody. You have to realize that having children is a privilege. It's a responsibility.
Right.
It's a God-given right, something
Yeah.
you do not take for granted and exploit. So for some, I think it's children is one of the most important conversations to have in a relationship. There's so many people that probably love someone enough and they ended up in this situation. They have children, but later on have regret because they knew right from the get-go they didn't.
Hmm.
But because they didn't want to lose the person and they loved them, they decided to. And later on, it destroyed some of their ambition, their
Right.
hobbies, their goals. And I can't tell you countless times how many people I see and regret or complain about how they don't have time to do things anymore, all the money that they're spending on their kids that they could have spent on all these alternative things. So I think you really need to be clear with the person and ask a few questions. Number one, why do I want to have children?
Hmm.
Is this something that fulfills me? It's a desire. It's people, I want to create people who carry on my name. I want to bring people in this world to help them in whatever way, shape, or aspect. But you really need to have these hard conversations because, you're in a situation where, you're with somebody who's had a child,
Hmm.
right? And you're obviously not having children. So this is the same situation where, they kind of hooked each other, where you guys obviously have had the hard talks. And, so my question to you would be, maybe there was a time in your relationship where you thought about having children. So maybe someone's in your position. They love somebody, they met somebody, and they'd be willing to do everything and anything for them. However, male or female, they want to have kids. However, they're thinking about sacrificing not having kids, or they made the decision not to for whatever that reason might be. Walk us through the thought process of maybe what you are thinking, what people
Hmm.
are thinking, what drove you to where you are today, what can drive them to see clarity,
Hmm.
and what is ultimately the right decision.
I think honestly, you instinctually know if you want to be a parent or not, if you want to have children or not. And I think that if your partner does not, you can't force them. It's something that you don't want to bring up in the future where there's resentment, there's guilt, there's so much attached to forcing someone to do something. However, if they express upfront that it's not something that they're interested in, you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision to let them go and live their life the way they are meant and intended to, and same vice versa for yourself. Because holding on to someone in hopes to change them or sway their mind, that's not a healthy attitude either. I mean, there's people out there. There's how many billions of people in this world? There are going to be people that you're going to meet that want to have children. So you just have to understand and accept that this might be the end of the road for that type of relationship, because adding that stressor or that need to be fulfilled when both parties are not on the same page, that's huge. And I think that it's an ego thing too, where you think you can change someone or know that or hope that they would change, because it doesn't. It'll just come out in other ways later on down the road. So
And let's think of the opposite spectrum. Say you're with somebody who knows want to have kids, but they're willing to sacrifice that to be with you. You also have to be honest to yourself.
mhm.
If sometimes loving someone is letting them go.
Of course,
It's an
100%.
unselfish task. So,
Mhm.
if you're in the situation right now where somebody wants to have kids and they're willing to sacrifice not having kids, there are some things that you can do that have positive effects. One, you could have the conversation with them and just let them know that you would be willing to let them go because it's something that in 5, 10 years they might regret.
Yeah.
There's that alternative. Another alternative is if you're with somebody and that it's something very, distinct that they want, and they're deciding that they're willing to give it up to be with you, you could also get them to freeze their eggs in case you decide to change your mind or her mind
Mhm.
one day. So there's a lot of different variables and things that you can do to put a positive spin on it. But definitely the first avenue that I would take is, you know, really let them know that unselfishly you'd be willing to let them go to be with somebody else so that they can have that part of their
Of
lives,
course.
children. and and I definitely think, I really wanted to mention that on there because there's probably some people who are stuck in that situation right now. I mean, we have friends that, you know, have were with people and originally said they wanted kids and then later on saying they didn't want to have kids. So I couldn't imagine being that person knowing that your partner switched their mind. How would that make you feel? You're already invested. At any point you're okay to walk away, but at some part of the process you might feel like you've given up something in your life and you really should never get to that point.
No, I agree. So let's move on to the next one. So we got quite a few to get through here. So politics. This is a big one.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is very similar to religious views as well. If someone is super passionate about a certain, um, side or, party, it could, like, I mean, if you are a Green Party and then you're marrying a conservative, like a hardcore conservative, there could be conflicts along the way, or if you're marrying a liberal and you're marrying, someone who's very passionate about being conservative, there might be some conflicts. Do you have any experience with people with differing political views?
Well, I'll use my own relationship for an
Sure.
example. I'm very conservative. My wife is very
Right.
liberal. And there's been many times we've been together where we talk about different sort of political perspectives. And, at times it has created conflict because we have different views. But I think really what it comes down to, I mean, it's not that it'll create conflict if you choose not to appreciate and respect the other person's opinion or view.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, this is also plays into something that plays into healthy communication, understanding, and respect for one another. Is if you're in a situation where you're getting into a relationship, and today with politics being so prominent,
Yeah.
between left and right, it's easy to get lost in it. But really, you should never forget the core things, which is one, you're two people that love each other.
Hmm.
Two, in order to grow, you must learn how to understand and respect one another more. And
Hmm.
three, you must also learn to respect one another's views, beliefs, and interests and things that you value. So, a positive spin on it is I never look at it like anything negative anymore.
Hmm.
So maybe you're in the situation, maybe you could just, listen and just look at it like a different perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I
Uh,
think I think you said it beautifully where it's like you just have to
yeah.
respect one another's opinions. They may be differing. But it comes to the point where the only way that it might be a problem or problematic is if you aren't respecting the other person's opinions and it's the expectation of your view being the right view, whatnot, right?
Well,
So,
I came up with a saying: you could either be right or you could just listen.
hmm. Hmm.
So if
Yeah.
if you want, here's what it comes down to. If you ever want to be understood, first learn to understand.
Hmm.
No, your partner will never ever get you until you first get them. That's the way it works.
Hmm. I
So
agree.
that's what it comes down to when it comes to politics. I mean, if you're in this and you're a Trump fan and your wife's not, and she's part of some feminist movement and you're creating conflicts,
Hmm.
have a hard talk and just say, look, you know what? We're on totally different spectrums, but I think at the end of the day, underlying what we both believe is good.
Hmm.
So how can we recognize that? How can we learn to, be collaborative in our ideas, our thoughts, and our ideologies?
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree. Okay, so the next one is handling conflict. How do people handle conflict? Could that be a deal breaker for somebody in a relationship? Is it a question that you should ask somebody? If a certain situation arises, how would you handle it?
Well, I think with handling conflict, I don't know if it's necessarily something you're going to ask somebody or something you need to experience with somebody.
Hmm.
Because what somebody tells you
Hmm.
and what somebody does is going to be two completely different variables, right?
Yeah.
So, handling conflict. I mean, there's so many different. Number one, I think really, I mean, what does handling conflict mean?
Hmm.
Is it handling conflict? Are we talking about what are the results of how we communicate with one another? What are the results of, how we view each other's opinions, thoughts, beliefs? What sort of emotions are we engaged in or going into the situation that is going to determine how we handle the conflict? So some things that I used to do that you want to avoid, which are red flags, is there's a lot of things that I can share on here that what would drive me to already kind of dictate what was going to happen when handling a conflict. If I was in a really bad emotional state, if I was having negative rumination about certain things and then accumulating things from the past, I mean, I almost could have predetermined what was going to happen, even though I just wanted to share my views. It kind of portrayed already the outcome of how the situation was going to go. So some things that you can do when handling a conflict is really just go in there with an open mind.
Mhm.
Don't feel like the other person's attacking you, rather than just sharing their perspective, no matter how high or low their energy is, no matter what type of language you're using.
Mhm.
Never, ever, ever make a perception of how things are coming out at you. Rather, just look at it like a human being that is handling the situation the best that they can, the most intelligent way that they can. And then after they're allowed to speak, after allowed to get everything out, and you share what you have to say, then discuss how you can choose to handle conflicts better, more intelligently. And for some reason, I think my sister is missing again. Um, I think conflict really comes down to either, there you are again. I think handling conflict comes down to communication styles. And these are either handed down to us
Mhm.
and we've kind of embraced them as our own, because at the end of the day, how do you learn to handle conflict?
Yeah.
It's not something you just imagine one day. It's something you see at home or in school or with coaches or people that mentored you.
Yeah.
And what you really have to first and foremost evaluate is a couple things. One, if I go into this conflict with a mindset that I'm going into it right now, with the beliefs that I have right now, with the thoughts that I'm having right now, what is the outcome going to be on a scale of 1 to 10? Is it going to be good or bad? And if you already know it's going to be less than a 5, then some things that I suggest is just to slow down, focus on your breathing, put it into perspective. Then what I want you to do is really just focus in on what it is that you want to accomplish from this. What is your vision? Do you want to be able to both intelligently respect one another's opinions and at the end come out stronger, loving one another, understanding one another, spending less time in anger and joy before you go to sleep? Do you want to go to sleep in anger? No. Do you want to go to sleep knowing that you're more connected than you were before? Then those are certain things you need to get really intelligent about before you have the communication with your partner. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I think you really don't know until you're in it. And I think that, you know, a lot of the times people handle conflict with what they have been taught or how they have been taught. If they have been surrounded by people that, shut off completely, don't talk to people for days, then that might be a blueprint or something that's been ingrained into your uh, hardwired mechanism how to deal with things. I mean, if you've been surrounded with family members or people that do argue but know how to resolve things immediately, that will probably be a part of your blueprint and how you um, deal with conflict. So I think that if you go in it, like you said, with the intention of, I want there to be an end result with love and gratitude and respect, then you have to make a conscious decision of how you're going to handle it right then and there. And it's going to take practice. It really will. And it's going to take effort, because to retrain that part of you that knew something for so long, it needs a conscious effort. It needs a willingness from you to put away your pride, and a bunch of other things like that. So it really is a conscious effort for sure.
Absolutely. I just want to add one thing. If you're watching this now or later on and
Mhm.
you're in a conflict and you think it might be the end, or you're just tired of the way it's going, sit down with your partner and create a
Mhm.
blueprint. What is it that we want to achieve from any time that we communicate to avoid turmoil? And
Mhm.
really what you're going to find is you're both seeking the same thing. You want to be heard,
Mhm.
you want to be connected, and you want to find a way to grow so you can seek love and connection.
Yeah.
So create a blueprint together. I actually just worked with an older couple in January, and we basically established a blueprint of something. It's a communication style that they're going to go into, and
Mhm.
it's something that they both committed to. And what we also discussed was, if at any point they were having this conversation and it wasn't going down the right path, refuse to keep going. But I don't mean walk away. Let the person know your intent, which is, you know what, I don't think this conversation is going right down the right path. And maybe you also feel a little bit uncomfortable. I support you in the fact that you're not in a good state. Go work out, go take a walk, have some time to think what you're doing, and then we'll engage again.
Right.
So there are some things that you can do to control the outcome.
Mhm.
Just realize that you do have the power to make those decisions, no matter
Right.
how emotionally invested you are. Just create those pauses and really just work on, before you decide to go ahead and do it, of what it is specifically you both want out of it.
Right. Okay, so the next one, this is a big one. I think people don't actually find out until later on what this means in the relationship. um, so a lot of the times, I know for myself, dealing with friends who come to me with a lot of questions, and they later on find out that they were not actually in an exclusive relationship, and that their partner or person that they were dating was actually didn't have the same intention, and it was an open relationship to them. So, what do you think about asking this up front, if the relationship is open or exclusive just to them?
It's kind of funny the way things have turned out these days.
Hmm.
These are conversations or topics you never would have thought of years ago. Like our grandparents, our parents would never sit down and have a conversation to say, hey, you know what? Are you into like being loyal, or are you okay with like screwing around with other people while we're together? Like
Hmm.
it's really amazing that we've come to this point where we're being really intelligent about the type of things we need to ask of people before we get involved with them on a long-term basis. So I think this is very important because there are some people that don't want to be exclusive.
Right.
And I think that's perfectly fine. And as human beings, we did a video on this, monogamy versus non-monogamy. We did the history of it. And it's actually not in our nature to be exclusive,
Hmm.
right? So the whole question is, here in a marriage style, or you know, you decide to live with each other and be monogamous. The whole question is, are you with a person who shares the same values?
Yeah.
Are you with a person who wants to go screwing around with the whole football team or every single waitress at Hooters? So, how do you avoid getting in a relationship with someone like this? You hit it right on the nose. You got to have that talk right up front. And the
Yeah.
moment you have that talk and they agree to be on the same page, and you start getting the inclination as the relationship progresses that they have different intentions, then you need to make a hard decision right there and then and let them go
Yeah. I
and
agree.
not continue to go down, because the more you progress, you're literally, what you're doing is you're setting the precedence for what's acceptable and tolerable in your
Hmm.
relationship.
Hmm.
And if you question that at some point, I'm really going to question you to really focus in on what your beliefs are about yourself and what you deserve in life.
Right.
You know,
It's just
that
very
would be
true.
my perspective on that.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I think that first and foremost, I think everyone's definition of what exclusivity looks like is completely different. And later on, finding out that your definitions don't match. Some agree with, okay, yeah, we're going to be exclusive sexually. However, I'm still going to go out for dinners, brunches, lunches with the opposite sex that have been close friends. Some disagree with having, um, you know, opposite sex as friends. So I think you have to get really clear on the parameters, because it will come up, especially nowadays when, we do work in mainstream areas where it is, co ed. There are males and there are females in the same public space. and you do form friendships, and what are the parameters around all of that too, and having those very hard conversations um, will only strengthen your beliefs and morals and get clear on if you are actually compatible with one another. And my thoughts on exclusivity. So it's interesting. There was this woman a few weeks ago that I was watching an interview that she did. I can't remember her name. She's a psychologist. She works at one of the universities in the States. And I've been racking my brain about exclusivity and open relationships, and trying to understand it, because I do understand that we derive from, the inability to be monogamous. However, through evolution, I believe that humans have evolved to the capacity where we can understand it. We can choose it. And it's something called a moral compass. And she explained it so beautifully. And it was like, thank God someone is able to deliver another perspective on this topic, because it racked my brain for, I would not say months, I would say years. And she said just these two words, and it has stuck with me. It's a moral compass. You choose to be in an exclusive relationship, and if you can't stay loyal, you're disregarding that moral compass within you that can decide yes or no. We all make a choice, yes or no. We don't eat a piece of chocolate cake probably at midnight before bed, because our moral compass is telling us we probably won't feel good the next morning or in an hour while we're sleeping. We don't eat a whole pizza in the morning, most likely because it probably won't make us feel good for the rest of the day. We don't walk across the road without looking both ways, because we know it's not safe. And the same thing goes for relationships. You make a choice, there's going to be a consequence for it. And I'm so glad she brought this up, because literally I was searching for something to kind of make me understand. And not that I wanted to be right or wrong, but I knew in my heart that exclusivity meant more than going against the grain. It was a choice, and it's the moral compass in you deciding to make that choice of yes or no. So
Yeah, no, I
I,
agree. I think there are some specific personalities that
mhm,
are more likely to cheat than not.
right,
Like I
right,
would say both alpha male and females
right.
can be narcissist personality types. People who they have that personality for never being accountable for their actions,
Hmm.
always in denial, deflect. Those are certain, like, I mean, if you're type of an exclusive person and you're maybe with someone who you think, shares those same values and maybe even express that they will be monogamous, but they have those certain types of personality traits, just I'm sending caution into the wind,
Hmm.
because they are more predominantly than not to do it, because essentially they believe they can get away with anything,
Right.
right? Their belief systems are completely different.
Yeah.
So
But I
yeah.
mean, then you have like, so there's people that get a bad rap in this type of frame, like online, especially like the Dan Balzerians, the Tate, Cobra Tates, all those guys who do have multiple women in their lives, but it's not that they're hiding it. They're very open about it. It's not secretive. These women who come into their lives are choosing that, and they understand the implications and their role within that relationship. So I respect the honesty piece of
Yeah.
it all.
But he
I
also
do.
doesn't have a manipulative personality,
No,
right? So
no, no,
that's
no.
what I'm talking about. He's alpha non-manipulative. There
Yeah,
could also be alpha manipulative with a bit of narcissism,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
just caution out in the wind.
Yeah. Okay. So next is relationships with parents or siblings. Is there a correlation between, asking someone a little bit closer to dating them, what their relationship with their parents or siblings are like? Because more often than not, a lot of the toxic behavior does derive from, experience in childhood. And it takes, like anything else, it takes a conscious effort to understand, where the work lies within yourself, because being influenced by something like that for long periods of time does have an effect on people. But there's also a victim mentality that also can be very deflective of being a part of that type of environment and not willing to grow and learn and be better. So, do you think it's important to ask, maybe what their relationship was like with their parents, or how it is like with their parents?
Well, I think a very good example of this, because it's so predominant in media today, is Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
Mm,
There's a lot of people that, speculate, how can you have seen this train wreck come?
mhm,
A lot of it's coming out now with her relationship with her family, her siblings, and from what I gather from media, and I don't make my opinion on that. I always say, if you don't know the person, then you really don't know what's going on.
right.
But judging from what I see in the media, there's a lot of red flags. She doesn't have a relationship with her siblings,
Mhm,
her family. She's decided to walk away from them. And now here's a guy who's of the highest stature you could possibly be on the planet, and she's basically made him choose, from what I see, them or her.
mhm,
So let's use this as an example of, yeah, I think it's very important, if you're about to date somebody, make sure you get engaged with their relationship with their parents and their
mhm,
siblings. Get around them. Even if you just get them to tell them that you're a friend, you're going to be on Inspector Gadget eyes, and you're going
mhm,
to be paying attention to how they engage, how they treat one another, how they talk to each other, how
mhm,
they respect and love one another. Because a lot of the times that's going to be a portrayal of how they will treat you, because
mhm,
that's where they learned.
mhm.
That's what they learned. And it always starts at home. I can't tell you how many times I hear people, that makes me sick. If you're watching this and you're a parent, don't ever complain about your children. Your children are a byproduct of everything that you teach them
Yeah.
and that you gave them, right? And so, how does this relate to here? Every child and the person you're with, their siblings, whatever, is going to be a byproduct of how the parents taught them how to treat one another,
Mhm,
right? So everything could be a reflection of how they're going to treat you. Now,
mhm,
if they fell from the heavens above and they appear to be completely different, well, maybe they had a spiritual awakening and decided to do something different. But there also are people that we know who came up in very poor families and decided to be something completely different. They
mhm.
didn't choose those styles that they were taught. So, you kind of have to walk a fine line. I mean,
Yeah.
do you want to get around their parents and siblings to see what their relationship is, and doesn't have to portray how they're going to treat you? No, but it could.
Yeah. It could, for sure. It could. Okay, so the next one, cleanliness. Could this be an issue?
Well, I'm sure every woman that's watching this would say, "Oh, I wish if I knew my husband was a slob and didn't pick up after and track dirt all around the house, I never would have married him." Well, ladies, that's every man. Okay. Most men are not clean,
Mhm.
not organized with their stuff, and will always say they're going to get to it. Now, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but keep your comment to yourself. But I think cleanliness is very important if it's important to you. Maybe you're two people that aren't bothered by it, but if you are someone that's a clean freak, or cleanliness is really just comes down to like self-care,
Yeah.
caring for their things, and that could
Mhm,
also portray into how they are with their finances, right?
mhm,
And so many other different facets. So I mean, if you're a clean freak like my mom, well, you better make sure you have these cold hard truths, because if you're engaging with somebody and you're going to the house and shit's all over the place, clothes are all over the place, pots and pans are in the sink, I'd hate to tell you, but this is going to affect your relationship down the road, because it'll be an accumulation of other things that makes how dirty they are that ends the relationship.
mhm. Yeah, I think part of it too is, okay, the excessiveness of it, and also the complementary piece of it, right? Where it's like, Because not all women are clean and not all men are clean and not all, some women are clean and some men are clean. I think that it could be a deal breaker for those who are very, retentive, very A-type about it. I think that if you don't look at the complementary piece of like, I'm really good at this, and I don't mind taking on this role as long as it is, appreciated and respected and whatnot, and not being taken advantage of. But I truthfully think that I don't think it's a deal breaker in the sense that if someone is a little bit messy, that the other person can't be the complementary piece in their life, if
Yeah,
that
well,
makes
for sure.
sense. Yeah. So let's move on to the next one. Goal oriented. Does someone have to be goal oriented? What do you think?
Well, I would say I don't think they have to be,
Mm-hmm.
but if
And it, yeah,
if you are an achiever and someone who's very goal focused, and you're with someone who's a procrastinator,
mm-hmm.
that's going to be a major problem. And,
I think so too.
and I'll tell you why. If you're a very goal oriented person, whether it's with your health, um, your money, your business, your family relationship, and you're with somebody who's not so goal oriented, it's going to create conflict because you're someone
Mm-hmm.
who focuses on growth, and
Mm-hmm.
there's someone with who's okay with where they are now.
Yeah.
So at some point, yeah, that could create some conflict. And really what that just means is you might just be going on different paths at some point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Someone who's going is an achiever, an accomplisher, wants to make a difference in their life, find some way to reach the next level. But when you're with somebody who might not be that way, it'll likely cause conflict. Now, if they are goal oriented as well, but they're a little bit on the left side, well, you know what? It could also be a positive because maybe you're someone that's always in achievement and never learns to how to be present in the moment. Well, maybe they can teach you those things. Tony Robbins said, what you have in common in a relationship is what makes it work. But the things that are uncommon are the things that cause it to grow, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also a lot of things that portray that. And I just really think if you are in a relationship like this right now, you just met somebody, you're very goal focused, they're not, have a conversation, find out, you know, how they see themselves or relationship or their life in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And if
Yeah.
you're someone that's goal focused, you're going to know if this is something that you want to embark on with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you don't need somebody bringing you down
Right.
and
No, I
dropping
agree
you
with you.
down a couple notches, right?
Yeah.
So definitely have that conversation, and it is important.
Yeah, I agree. And the last one, fitness, self-care. What do you think?
I
And
wish I wish we had this 20 years ago, this
yeah.
conversation, because self-care is about just as important as breathing.
Yeah.
Self-care is something that, number one, affects your mental health. Two, it'll affect the belief system about yourself and the world. And number three, it'll tell you how much you're going to contribute
Mm-hmm.
to your relationships, to yourself, to your family, to your job, and so many other facets. So, fitness, physical health is extremely, extremely, extremely important. If you are in a relationship right now with somebody and they're experiencing, say, mental health issues, anxiety, depression, whatever it might be, make sure they get their ass in the gym
Mm-hmm.
now. Go sign them up, get a membership, or go with them. One of the greatest things to accelerating your mental health and coming out of a mental health struggle is physical fitness. And a couple reasons for that is, number one, it reduces cortisol. Cortisol is responsible for releasing all the stress hormones
Yeah.
into the body. It reduces that right away. And number two, it also increases testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't tell you enough how much fitness, the things that you eat, if you struggle with this on a Sunday night, preset out things you're going to do throughout the week. I mean, we have 3 kids. My wife has a career. I have 2 businesses, but every week we go skating. We go for a walk at the park down the road. We go for walks. We'll um, go outside. We'll go tobogganing. There's so many different things that we do because it's something that makes you feel alive. Like getting out
Yeah.
in nature is healing in itself.
Yeah.
So if you are just you and a couple, do something together. If it's you and a family, make sure you set a family ritual of something you do weekly to, number one, help you get connected. Make sure you leave your cell phones in the car. And number two, will also bring a lot of vitality and new energy to the day, to that moment. And when you come home, you'll have such a rejuvenation within yourself that it'll just feed out into everybody around you.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think and I think too, you kind of meet someone with a likeness, a physical likeness, if that makes sense. If someone has good, healthy habits, you most likely will be attracted to someone who also has good, healthy habits, and vice versa to not. And I mean, it's not to say in between that if it's something that is not a priority, that you both can't make it a priority later on. But most likely, like attracts like. If you are in that realm of physical fitness, self care, healthy eating, most likely you'll find somebody or attract somebody with that likeness.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. And I actually correlated people who don't make fitness a priority with taking shortcuts in other aspects of their lives.
yeah.
So definitely, if you want other areas of your life to improve, just
Hmm.
even outside of your relationship, hit that gym.
Yeah,
If
I
you
agree with
are
you.
about to get into an argument, something's getting heated, something that can turn out to something you don't want it to, go for a walk,
Yeah.
take a jog, hit the gym, drop those stress levels, increase your testosterone, clear your mind, clear your heart, get back there and hit it again. And the thing is, when you're in a better state, you ultimately start to think and feel better because it produces better emotions. You ultimately feel more empowered.
Hmm. No, I agree with you. But on that note, that was our top 10. We may have squeezed in one extra in there, but you know, I think I can't stress this enough. And I tell people who, come to me and ask me these things, especially if they're new to the dating scene or have been dating someone for a few weeks or months, ask these questions. Your time is being invested, their time is being invested, and you don't want to find these things out a year or 2 or 3 years, down the road where you could be saving each other a lot of angst and heartache and, turmoil by just figuring it out. Just figure it out, and like Sam said, we wish that we would have had these questions for ourselves to get to know ourselves a little bit better, along with getting to know our future partners a little bit better as well. So, are there any closing comments you want to say before we end here, Sam?
I think really what it comes down to is a lot of us, the first thing we talked about was religion. A lot of us use the emphasis of, you have that priest in front of you, they're telling your vows, and you think that's a winning strategy to create a lasting, happy relationship. For
Right.
the majority of people, find out it's not, which is why in North America, 50% of relationships, marriages fail. So I think really what it comes down to is accumulate all the things that we talked about and just ask yourself, what is a blueprint that I need to have when I meet somebody so that my relationship is something of growth, connection, love, and contribution through all the thick and thin, through all the
Hmm.
good and the bad times, through sickness and health. You know, we have this saying, but we need a map and a vehicle that supports us along the way.
Hmm. Yep. No, I agree.
Yeah.
So, on that note, once again, this is the relationship series. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and the notification bell. And once again, we are talking about matters of the heart and mind. We'll see you next time.